Hey people, good morning. We are in my office today. There are torrential rains falling around us at the moment. And so the only place that I could get that was not in the rain was sitting in my office. But anyway, got a great flag and quite applicable at this particular time sitting behind me. 1 Thessalonians 1, we've dealt with it, all the different characteristics of spiritual churches, what good churches look like, characteristics of what believers should be living according to and should look like to the world around us. But we get into chapter 2 now, and I want to jump through a couple of issues, but to get to verse 18. And Paul says this in verse 18. He says, I desired so much to come to you, but Satan hindered me. You see, it reminds me of the fact that we have an enemy. And I'm also reminded of the terminology in the book of Daniel, Daniel chapter 10, where Daniel has prayed a prayer. And he's been confused at the fact that his prayer has not been answered. But then in verse 13 it says this, verse 12, he said, Jesus came and spoke to Daniel and said, do not be afraid, Daniel. Since the first day you set your mind at gaining understanding to humble yourself before your God, your words were heard, and I have come in response to them. But the prince of the Persian kingdom resisted me or hindered me 21 days. Then Michael, one of the chief princes, came to help me because I was detained there with the king of Persia. The king of Persia is simply a picture of Satan. It's a picture of the works of darkness. And there is a spiritual war that goes on around us. I sometimes think if we could see it, then we'd be scared. The living daylights would be scared out of us because we have an enemy and he operates in another realm. But his ideal is to get at us, is to hinder us from achieving the will and the purpose of God. And so we know we have this enemy. Daniel had to confront him, and even Jesus had to call the archangel Michael, who's in charge of the armies of heaven, to come and clear the way for him so that after 3 weeks his prayer could be answered. Now let me ask you this. If Daniel, the great Daniel, the one who was thrown into the lion's den, the one who denied himself the pleasure of the kingdom of Persia, the kingdom of Babylon, and all the food and the pleasures that came with us. The same Daniel that was praying 3 times a day and refused not to draw the curtains on his praying. This Daniel, if he had to suffer under the hands of a demonic force, how much more wouldn't we? But the fact is that Daniel was a threat to the kingdom of darkness. I sometimes look at my life and I think, am I a threat to darkness? Am I a threat to the kingdom of darkness? Am I worth hindering, is the question I'm asking today. Would Satan take enough notice of me and say, man, listen, this guy here, we need to attack him. We need to try and stop him. We need to try and hinder him. I guess in a way, it's a place of highest privilege. If Satan is threatened by us, that's a good thing. We must be doing something right. And so I guess in a sense, I'd like to start off by this week by saying to you, expect persecution, not just from the world, but from the demonic realm. He has power. You don't want to mess with him. You don't want to make light of him. But we do need to know that we stand on victory ground, even if it takes 3 weeks or 3 months or 3 years or 30 years to get our prayers answered. We keep persisting and we keep praying. Because maybe the realm that is around us is hindering our prayer from being answered. Do we stop praying? No, of course we don't. Do we run and sulk because our prayers have been answered? No, we don't do that either. We wait patiently for the answer to our prayer. And then we trust God for the right answer. We know He's going to give us the right one because He loves us. We know He looks down and He smiles upon us and He cheers us on from heaven. And He's saying, Angel Michael, you may need to be called because those guys down there in that particular church or that particular individual are praying a passionate prayer. We need to answer that prayer. But in order for that prayer to be answered, you may need to break through yourself through the realm of darkness. I refer often to that beautiful picture with Elijah and his servant. And his servant was confused because Elijah wasn't perplexed at the nature of the enemy that was around him. And the armies of had surrounded him in Dothan and we're going to wipe him out. And Elijah is just sitting calmly waiting. And then when he saw this, the servant was just was deeply perplexed. He says, "Why are you not worried?" And he says, "Oh Lord, just open this guy's eyes." And when his eyes were opened, he realized that greater is he who is with us than he who is outside the world. Or in the New Testament it says, greater is he who is with us than he who is in the world. So we start off knowing today, people, as we look at this issue of Satan resisting us, so we're going to spend a couple of days talking about that. We know we stand on victory ground, that even though your prayer may not have been answered and it may have been prayed so passionately, just know that God will answer that prayer. Just know that God will come through. It may just take a little bit longer because of what's happening around us. But remember this, that greater is he who is with us in the heavenly realm. The greatness of the armies of heaven in comparison to the armies of Satan around us, Satan's army is nothing. It's a beautiful picture of the authority and the place of security that we stand as we pray. Think about that today, and we'll see you again tomorrow. Bye-bye.